Hey guys, welcome back to Sports with Mono and Mono. It's Jim and Steve here with you. It's August 12th, 2019.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show. I'd like to have a little quick shout out that my partner recently had a birthday on August 1st. We're not going to announce his age,
That's all right.
but I'd like the audience to know happy birthday.
Thank you very much. It's just another day. It's just a Thursday.
Oh, you're so modest. You're so modest.
Well, let's get on with the show here. And obviously, our first segment is always sponsored by Coriano Trucking Incorporated. And we continuously thank them. And actually, he has a birthday coming up, too.
He's got to be close in age to you.
Oh, right around the corner.
I'm going to guess.
Right around the corner.
Okay.
Obviously, a former teammate of Steve and I at St. Joseph Regional High School.
Famous for the neck collar for our older fans. I don't see many neck collars out there.
Man, I guess he was a Phil Villapiano fan.
When I think neck collar, I go Jim Otto, number one. I got to think Phil Villapiano, follow Jim Otto.
I'm just thinking defensive back, though.
Mr. Coriano was a defensive back,
Yes, he
and we
was.
thank you for the sponsorship, guy. Thanks
sure
very much.
So listen, let's start off with Major League Baseball, right? We're getting into the dog days of August and so forth. And Steve, who do you want to lead with? I guess obviously.
We got to lead with the New York Mets.
Having a call-in show here.
Damn fans, they don't leave us alone. But I wanted to talk about the Mets because, we've talked about them now for the last, since you and I partnered up together, really. And they've been lights out. I don't know what else to say other than
Certainly, obviously,
lights out.
hottest team since the All-Star break.
But I also want to make a point. We really got on them, earlier in the season.
More than you.
Yeah,
More than
no,
you.
but I actually said Callaway would be gone by the All-Star break. They lost some horrific things, games. I think the deciding thing with the Mets is the bullpen is really the biggest Achilles heel for them.
Yep.
However,
They got two guys hitting 330, right? I mean,
McNeil.
McNeil's hitting, he's hot, and who else? Conforto, he's tearing it up. Actually.
Well, those are the core guys that they've really invested in, and from drafting them, and those guys I really don't think are the problem here.
No, Diaz is the problem. I mean, he's the guy that's he's given up 4 home runs in his last 5 relief appearances.
Right, and he was awful. He's been awful all year.
Yes, he has.
And listen, the guy had a great year last year in Seattle, and was warranted to get signed by the Mets, and Brody traded for him, etc. Has he been a disappointment? He's been a disappointment, right?
But they're 4 games over 500 at this point.
But my point about the Mets, I mean, they were god awful prior to the All-Star break.
Yep.
So we can only comment on the state of the Mets at the time. However, they have been playing great baseball.
They have. I'll concede that. I mean, I don't think it's going to last, but you know what? The National League is wide open, but they got the toughest schedule coming up over the next month. They got to play some, they've had some cupcakes. They played, the Marlins like 8 times over the past month.
Yeah, but I said that last week. I don't care who they're playing. That's a Major League Baseball team, and you got to win those games. But to the Mets' credit, they are now in contention. And nobody, and I mean diehard Met fans, nobody 2 months ago thought this was possible.
Well, let's talk about why they're in contention, because there's nobody else running away with it. The Philadelphia Phillies with their $300 million man, they're only 2 games over 500.
Right, but the Braves, like we talked about, are a young team. They're leading the National League East. I think they're still probably about 7 or 8 up on the Mets. However, the Mets we're talking wild card. You get 2 wild cards, and they're only 2 back, really.
Right.
So to your point, I really think because of this stretch that they've played very well, I got to think that reality sets back in and they fade to black. However, again, the '69 amazing Mets went on some ridiculous tear too, and the rest was history, and we're celebrating that 50 years later.
You know, I actually wanted to check because after the Friday night game, Frazier hits this 3-run homer. I can guarantee you the headline in the Post or the News was amazing, right? And I don't buy the newspaper anymore, but that would have been a layup for a headline guy in one of those tabloids,
Right.
you know?
But again, our boy Pete Alonso, I think he's only like one away from the rookie record of for National League home runs. I predicted he's probably going to hit 50. I still kind of think he will, but you got to assume he's hitting 45 minimum.
Well, listen, we touched on this a little bit, and I've been doing a little homework and looking at some of this stuff. There's like 20 guys that have 30 home runs, so there's something going on with that baseball to this level. And Verlander was absolutely right. Guys you've never heard of are hitting 480-foot home runs. This was unheard of.
Yeah,
back then.
we covered this on the show a week or two ago. And Rob Manfred, I saw an interview with him, and he's even conceding it. The balls are juiced. I mean, let's be real here.
I think so. I don't think we can deny that, but I think Alonso is the real deal anyway. I mean, he's a beast. He's huge.
Right. So, again, congratulations to the Mets for a great run.
Yep.
Okay. Now, like you said, I think their schedule gets a little bit harder, and then we'll see what they're made of. But talking about the juice baseballs, so the Yankees are up in Toronto over the weekend.
Yep.
Gio Urshela, who we've spoken about, who's been a godsend to the New York Yankees.
Wow.
And nobody ever heard of Gio Urshela.
Nope, nobody
before
did.
The season started, and I don't care how great of a baseball fan you are.
And
But
he's
what-
not letting up either.
No, but what a great year the kid is having. But back to your point on the juice balls, he hit a couple home runs this past weekend. 420 feet.
Okay.
400 and so right then and there,
How about this?
it is juiced.
He hit one today against Game 1 against the Orioles.
All right, Yankees.
461 feet.
Right, so the Yankees are playing a split doubleheader against the Baltimore Orioles.
461.
Okay. Now that's a powerful man, Roy. That's my Ross Perot. And actually, we forgot to mention Ross Perot a couple weeks ago on our notable passings.
Yeah.
So we just wanted to shout out real quick on Ross Perot, the
Yep.
1992 presidential election, and that's the reason Bill Clinton
Took the White House.
took the White House. There's no question about it.
No.
But the Yankees are playing the Baltimore Orioles today. And if for our fans that know, we got on Chris Davis. Remember early on in the season when Chris Davis had his historic 0 for,
Yeah, what was
well,
it?
0 for 37,
Something.
something ridiculous.
Yep.
So I actually just looked up Chris Davis's stats because the Yankees were playing today. And the reason I did that was because apparently when the Yankees were down there in Baltimore within the week, Davis got into it a la Billy Martin and Reggie
Brendan
Jackson
Hyde.
with the manager Brandon Hyde.
Yep.
And I could only imagine what Brandon Hyde said to Chris Davis to set him off. And you know why he went off? Because Chris Davis is batting 180. He has 9 home runs and 32 RBIs on August the 12th,
And he-
2019.
And he was barking about getting pinch hit for in a 2-run game. He didn't play today in Game 1, by the way.
They were probably resting him.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's a great point. 'Cause, I mean, and this guy's making what? $10-12 million a
We
year?
talked about it. He signed this ridiculous contract, like
Oh.
$167 million. The Orioles owe him for another probably 4 years, would be my guess.
I guess.
But
yeah.
they are going to have to eat the money like the Yankees have had to eat Jacoby Ellsbury and other teams. with
Oh, he
these bad
sealed his fate
contracts.
with that little tirade in the dugout. I mean, Hyde doesn't look like he takes any crap. So,
No. But the Yankees are persevering.
yeah.
I wanted to touch on one thing on the Yankees. Brian Cashman, the general manager. What an obscure story this is. So this was what, 2-3 days ago.
Yeah.
Brian Cashman, who has been the general manager for now how long?
Got to be close to 20 years.
It's got to be over 20 years, right?
Okay.
He took over for Bob Watson, right? So anyway, Brian Cashman reports his car stolen in the Bronx or something. He goes to pick up his car. They find it within like a 24-hour period. And again, Brian Cashman, the general manager of the New York Yankees.
Right.
So he goes, retrieves his car in Darien, Connecticut, or he got his car and then he's driving in Connecticut. He lives in Connecticut between Darien and Norwalk.
Right.
And all of a sudden, an officer pulls him over. Before you know it, there's 7 cops. Guns are drawn on Brian Cashman. Turn the car off, step out of the vehicle, back up to us, and turn around.
And
how crazy? I mean, how crazy is this?
it's a crazy story, and you and I have talked about this 10 times. There has to be more to this story than what was released by the press. There has to be. First of all,
he's got a Cuban prospect in the back seat that he's trying to smuggle in from Cuba.
I don't know, but can you possibly?
I think the police explained it that he retrieved his car and the system just wasn't updated to the cops out in the field in their cars, and I think it was, I'm gonna take them at their word.
I could text somebody in Saudi Arabia and they'll get it in 30 seconds.
I get it, but the point is here, wow, I thought that was a crazy story because that could have turned into a tragedy. And can you imagine if you have a trigger-happy cop here and...
In today's day and age, yeah.
But this is the general manager of the New York Yankees.
All right.
He's one of the most recognizable guys in the tri-state area for the past 30 years.
No question about it.
So I just wanted to touch on that was an odd story, and I'm glad that Cashman didn't get blown away.
But they're certainly not covering this, but I have to think there's more to it. It just seems too far-fetched for me to think that, they draw 7 cops, pull this guy out of the car, and I don't know. It just seems strange.
Talking about baseball, we kind of scanned the standings right prior to the show. So the Yankees are doing well in the AL East. Tampa Bay's in second. The Red Sox are pretty far back now.
Yeah.
But we looked actually at the AL Central, and we've been touting the Minnesota Twins all year. We've had a great year.
Hitting a lot of home runs.
And then a couple weeks ago, we touched on Cleveland. Terry Francona, we mentioned Trevor Bauer and that incident. But slowly but surely, Cleveland has inched back. And if you look at the standings today, folks...
They're dead even.
They're dead even.
Yep.
Right?
71 wins.
Yep.
And put that into perspective. The Yankees, what do they got? 73, 74?
Yeah.
Right? You're right. Cleveland has come almost out of nowhere, but... I don't know if that means they're just super hot or Minnesota's cooling off. They're still hitting a ton of home runs.
It's a long season.
Yeah.
Again, here we are in the dog days of August. And then we scanned, the LA Dodgers are 19 games up on the second place Arizona Diamondbacks.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
Right. Now, outside of the Twins and the Indians, the next team is 18 games out of first place.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
And then in the National League East, you have the Braves are like 8 up on like the Mets and Nationals. And we talked about the Mets. They took 2 out of 3 out of the Nationals. We kind of did a little look on the Phillies. Phillies are only like 2 games over.
That's it.
Our $300 million man. We got to say, though, we just looked up his numbers. He does have 80 RBIs here on August 12th, 20-something home runs. He's one guy, don't get me wrong. But I'm not going to throw him under the bus right now. I mean,
listen.
He's got to finish with at least 110.
We've been following this kid since
maybe.
he was a phenom at 16 years old.
Out of Las Vegas, and
right,
he was a Tiger Woods prodigy, that type of thing.
Yep.
Right.
But 276 lifetime batting average. 100 runs batted in once.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Well, he's going to do it twice. But
I mean, it puts
to your point, you're right. You're expecting Babe Ruth numbers from a kid like this, and especially with the contract that he just
But now
got.
when you put it into perspective, and the Angels emptied the vault for Mike Trout, there's a guy that puts up Lou Gehrig type numbers
He's
year
the
after
standard
year,
bearer.
and
He's
he
the
is
standard bearer.
the best player in Major League Baseball.
Unquestioned.
Right.
No question.
So you're right. The Indians, they made a run. Actually, I think I'm going to go see them play the Yankees this weekend. Actually, so
Okay. So outside of that, I don't think there's really any other big Major League Baseball stories other than the dog days of August. And,
Yep.
we wanted to touch on the Mets, congratulate the Mets for really, it's been a great run.
revived their whole season. I mean, I didn't see it
But
coming.
they still have a lot of work to do. There's still a month and a half of the season to go. So
Yep.
we'll see what happens on that front.
Okay. So listen, let's move on to the NFL. Right now, the NFL. Obviously, I think Steve and I, we've talked about this. The preseason, most of the marquee guys don't play, or they play for a series or so forth,
Yeah, they don't play, period.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll get, like you said, they'll get a series and that's it.
All it is, it's a tryout for the guys that are trying to make the roster.
Right.
That's what the preseason is. But, our quarterback in New York, I know it's preseason, and I know it's nothing to get excited about, but Daniel Jones had a great debut for the Giants.
He did.
I mean,
Five
told
for
you.
five, 67 yards, and a touchdown. But he made two really impressive throws.
his touchdown pass
He had a
was
cross
perfect.
seam pattern that he nailed about 20, 25 yards across the field, hit him right in stride. And that touchdown in the back of the end zone was really a laser beam.
Yep,
And again, it's preseason.
I get it.
I couldn't have been happier for the kid, but based on all the pressure that he has and the skepticism of the Giants taking him at 6. Couldn't ask for a better debut. 5 for 5, 67, a touchdown. So
And he's handled himself very well. And listen, there's nothing tougher than the New York media to have to deal with, but he's put on a smile and just went out and just does his thing, and I like the kid.
I think a lot has to do with his upbringing. He's a Duke kid. David Cutcliffe was his quarterback coach, who
Yep.
a lot of NFL guys and football fans know was, the tutor to the Manning boys. So he's been schooled, he's been coached, he's got a good demeanor. He's a big kid too. I
Yes.
mean, when you look behind center, he's all of 6'5" back there.
Yep.
It's very early, obviously, but I think a lot of air went out of the balloon for him to have a nice showing like he did.
Absolutely.
And again, the Giants played the Jets preseason. Darnold came in for his first series or two.
And
He
you're
looked
you're
fine.
big on him. I know you are.
I think Sam Darnold's going to be a real good NFL quarterback. I think the Jets have a franchise quarterback. I really do.
I guess I really wasn't in his camp this whole time. I was shocked that he was the second player taken in the draft, but he could be the player for that team.
No,
actually.
again, I've heard some interviews recently from him. Now that football's front and center again back, but
And he's young. He's still only 21 years old, or
he's a
22.
baby. He's a baby, and I really think the Jets have a quarterback on their roster.
I know they got a running back, and like I said, I'm not crazy about having that kind of cancer on your team, but if he's got anything left, this
Yeah,
could
well,
be.
you're not going to see him in preseason. I would imagine he will not even see the field. Right?
Same thing with Barkley. You don't put these guys at risk.
No reason
they don't
to.
have anything to prove.
Exactly.
you know.
Julio Jones, your top tier guys. There's no upside to playing these guys in preseason. These guys are lights out. As soon as week 1 hits, they're good to go.
But how about this thing with this Antonio Brown?
I'm glad you brought that up because man, have I been waiting to talk about this.
Oh my goodness! I mean, look, not only now he's causing trouble about this helmet thing.
Well, let's get back to the original story during the week. Frostbite. Cryogenic chamber in Paris, France, something along those lines.
And we're supposed to believe this? Is that what we're supposed to believe this?
Again, it's preseason. There is nothing going on. Now, we talked about that the Oakland Raiders are on Hard Knocks on HBO. I will say I saw about a half an hour of the first episode. But speaking to Antonio Brown, we talked about him earlier in a show, I'm going to say a month ago or something along those lines. And we've touted how productive and how he's deserving of this contract, and he's produced, etc. Right? And he won it out of Pittsburgh. So now that he's paid, I think he's starting to show his true colors of what a cancer he probably was in Pittsburgh. And to Mike Tomlin's credit, he had to deal with Le'Veon Bell and the holdout. Ben Roethlisberger and that ego. And Antonio Brown bitching and moaning that he ain't getting paid. And now he gets paid, and now he is basically untouchable. Because the circus that's going on in Oakland with this guy, what are they supposed to do? They signed him to this big deal money, and they need him to show up.
And Gruden is growing increasingly frustrated with this. The fact that this guy hasn't even shown up.
I would think so. But it gets to the point of he wasn't going to play anyway type of thing. But he's showing his true colors, I think, maybe as a malcontent here. And I think the Raiders are really, they may have bought.
What did we do here?
What did we do here?
Yeah.
I think that's a fair assessment of what's going on.
I mean, I think they needed to do that. They needed to get talent for Carr, because I think we're all on the fence. And I think John Gruden's just as much on the fence about whether Derek Carr is the real deal in the National Football League.
Well,
and now he's got this stud receiver who, he's not even working with him.
But this is the year that Carr will prove himself.
I
think Derek Carr has been a good quarterback with the garbage that he's had around him. Okay, I'd say he's had Amari Cooper. He's had some talent, but not not all the pieces here, not all the chess pieces. But back to Antonio Brown. Now, this frostbite retarded story comes out earlier in the week, and now, for the last 48 hours, we're talking about, I want my helmet, I want my old helmet. So what do you think the NFL's position is? Of course, with the concussions and everything else, the NFL has no choice. Here are the new redesigned helmets. These are the safety marks with the helmets. I don't care that it looks like Gazoo from the Flintstones. You have to wear this. Okay? And Antonio Brown is threatening to retire if I don't wear my helmet. So go ahead, retire, Antonio, and go leave $31 million on me.
Yeah, this is not the guy you want on your team.
So the point is, again, back to my original point, I think the Raiders are biting their lips here, saying we may actually have this malcontent on our hands, and we're going to be sorry that we brought him in. But I can't fault them for bringing him in.
I agree.
Right? So it's a catch-22.
I agree.
I don't know what else to say on that. And if anybody's got some comments, I know we got some Raider fans out there.
You do.
Send us an email, sportswithmono@gmail.com, and we'd love to hear what your thoughts are on Antonio Brown.
But this whole cryogenic, whatever this crazy contraption is, this is so monitored. You're going it's like 300 degrees below the zero, and you didn't put on your socks? I mean, come on.
He couldn't be colder than what Ted Williams is right now in his...
Exactly. Exactly.
For our fans, Ted Williams' family decided to freeze him until technology catches up, and they defrost him in 100 years.
And then we'll have another 400 hitter in baseball if that happens. This is Austin Powers stuff,
Exactly. How did that get in there?
All right, but like I said, let's get through this preseason, because it's like I said, it's a tryout for guys trying to make the team. That's really all.
That's all it is. And week 1 of preseason just started. But again, when you're bored on a Thursday night and it's 95 degrees out, you're football fans, you'll sit outside with buddies and watch this.
Right.
And, but that's what the NFL's all about. That's why it's such a lucrative business.
So listen, let's move on. And this segment is sponsored by Lynch Toyota of Manchester, Connecticut, longtime loyal sponsor of our show. And thank you to Lynch Toyota for that. So golf, right? All the majors, they're done. Now we're getting into this FedEx Cup, and we were talking about it before. $15 million. This is a winner-take-all thing.
Right, this is breaking news, because when we talked last time, I know the purse was $10 million, And then we just looked it up because, like you said, the FedEx just started. It was at Liberty National in Jersey City.
Yeah.
Great weather. It was a good tournament,
Yeah.
very scenic. I've actually been there. I saw this tournament. I actually saw the President's Cup there
It
a
was
couple of
there.
years
Yes,
ago.
it was. Yes, it was.
And it's very scenic. And I was happy Patrick Reed finally.
Me
He's
too.
had a tough year. He's lost weight. He looks in shape. Captain America, that type of thing. That's his nickname. But he held off the field. This Abraham Answer. Again, we talked about these guys winning tournaments we never heard of in the last couple weeks or what have you.
He's going to be a player in the President's Cup.
This kid was right there, and Reed made a big putt
Yeah.
to go 2 up, I think on 16 or 17. And
I wish I knew the whole behind the scenes why Reed had this reputation as being kind of a cocky, arrogant thing. I've never really seen that.
No, I think it stemmed from the President's Cup. I think he was very enthusiastic
Yeah,
about
but
representing America. There were some pairings he didn't like, etc. He plays well, I think, with Jordan Spieth or something like that. And he just voiced his opinion. And then all of a sudden the media takes that. And then all of a sudden now you have a controversy with Reed. So Reed is a Masters champion. He's a young kid on the tour, and I think you're going to see Patrick Reed win a couple majors
I
going
agree.
down the road.
I was delighted when he won the Masters.
So he got off to a good start, so he gets all the bonus points or whatever, and then I think they head up to Boston for phase 2 of the... There's 4 tournaments, I believe, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I think the final is at East Lake,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And,
So they eliminate guys based on performance. So, a lot of guys are now home, and then X amount move on up to Boston. And then, but like to your point, I mean, $15 million for this, that's a lot of cash.
wow.
Right?
But listen, before we go off of golf, what do you make of this whole controversy of this slow play thing? Like Koepka and these guys.
DeChambeau is
Well,
like
they're
apparently
hanging
the
it on
biggest
DeChambeau.
culprit.
Right. I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of saying this has been going on forever. I mean, you want to criticize the guy for taking his time?
Thinking and right.
Some of the weather's been
surveying
crappy, and the crappier the weather, the longer it takes to play. I think that's was interesting that they call out DeChambeau on this, and I mean, who else has the right to call somebody out then?
I think a lot has to do with the TV, again, things like that. I would assume there's behind the scenes pressure on, we got to pick up the pace of play here. It's not, you can't, be standing around a shot for 3-4 minutes, that type of thing. You got advertisers. I would think behind the scenes in the PGA offices, they're probably getting some blowback from sponsors and things like that about the pace of play.
Really?
That's the only reason. To your point, it's been ongoing forever.
Right, completely contrary to who was it, Calcavecchia, like 20 years ago? They blamed him for playing too fast.
Right.
Him and Daly were one day, I guess they were hammered or something, and they were just running up and down the course playing in 10 minutes.
67 cocked.
Right.
Exactly.
And then barking about the guys in front of them like they were playing too slow. So it's crazy.
Right.
But this, the PGA Tour seems, there's this whole crew of, 23 to 30-year-old guys like we've never seen before. I mean,
Not to the amount. Yeah, you're right. There's always been like 1 or 2 new faces you would see, and then they become prominent, and you would see them.
Yep.
But they're like we've talked about it. Like so when we were talking about the majors and who's going to win, and we kind of said it could be one of any 30 guys.
We got 14 first-time winners on tour
And
this
that's
year.
what we talked about last
Yeah,
week.
I
So
mean, it's
to your
crazy.
point, right. But I just think, I would think it's more TV related and pick up the pace of play, sponsors, all this other nonsense.
Yeah, I just hate to see these young kids because they all seem pretty tight. That they start stepping on each other's toes. I don't know. That can't be good for the tour.
Yeah.
So listen, let's move on. Let's real talk. We know we got the U.S. Open in tennis coming up, right?
Okay.
And this Rogers Cup, which is kind of, I guess it's a big deal. It's kind of the U.S. Open of Canada, if you will, right? I mean, Nadal won it again. So he's primed and ready to go for the U.S. Open. Obviously, Federer and Djokovic will be there. So this is going to be just as awesome as the French was and as Wimbledon was. And this is always awesome. It's great. Labor Day weekend, right?
So if you're leading to the prediction of the U.S. Open,
Hmm.
you just mentioned the three guys that are going to be there at the end.
Yeah.
There's no question about it.
Well, especially on the men's side. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's those three and everybody else. Some of these other young kids can come. You'll get a relatively unknown. But we talked about this about a month ago when Wimbledon was going on. On the women's side, it's a lot different. There's a lot of open, and we're hearing new names. And the girl that she won, and she held her. What a classy kid. She's Canadian, and Serena had to withdraw
Okay.
in the finals. And she was hysterical on this kid, 19-year-old kid, Andarusa or something, I think her name was. But what a classy kid. She went over and consoled her and so forth. So it really was. It was kind of weird to see that Serena, who on the precipice of the U.S. Open coming up, getting hurt.
Which very well may be her last. It very well may be. But really, I just wanted to jump back on the men's real quick. I think everybody is hoping for a Federer-Djokovic final, right? Because we talked about the epic Wimbledon match, which was only, a month ago, if that, right?
Right.
That's what we want. I think everybody wants that. And especially if you're driving to the U.S. Open and getting bent over and raped with prices there, the U.S. Open may very well be the most expensive tournament venue for the average fan to attend.
I guess outside of the Masters.
Well, outside your corporate tickets and things like that, and I get that, people that work. I'm talking the average fan, the average tennis fan. If you wanted to take your kid to Arthur Ashe Stadium,
I've never done
I think
it,
you got to
so-
refinance your house.
I've never done it, but I bet it's $10 for a bottle of water.
I've heard and I have never been.
Me either.
I've never been, for full disclosure. But for those that have been, when they come back, and when, we always complain because, we go to Yankee Stadium or something,
With their
or
pockets hanging
for a
out.
$14 beer and a, $15 sandwich or something. This is big dough. So, back to my point. I mean, if you're going to spend that kind of money, you kind of want to see Federer and Djokovic rematch from Wimbledon.
Yep.
That'd be my guess.
I agree.
So, who do you like on the women's side, though? Oksana back?
She'll be back. But yeah, I really like this Simona Halep, who really took apart. I mean, I know she's coming off the Wimbledon win, but she's one of the top players on the women's side.
Right.
And Osaka's been very quiet and so forth, but she's coming off. She's a defending champ,
She is.
so look forward to her. And I don't know if this Bianca Andreescu, who's the one that won the Rogers Cup in Canada, maybe this is the start of her run.
Okay. So, again, the U.S. Open will be upon us in a matter of 2 weeks.
Yep.
Right? So we'll be following that on Sports with Mono and Mono.
We shall.
What else you got there, partner?
Well, listen, we talked about some of the craziness that went on in this U.S. gymnastics thing with this Larry Nasser, right?
We touched on it.
We did, but I want to bring this up because
But before you do bring that up, I'd like to give an update on that. I think that there was I want to say it was the athletic director at Michigan State who actually is going to go to jail
He's doing time,
for a year.
Yep.
Because Nasser was under
oh yeah,
this guy's tutelage or, reporting, organizational structure,
Agreed.
depth chart, whatever. But I think the fact that this guy is going to do some time, that's a good message. But Nasser, oh my God, this is far from over still.
Oh, he
But
is.
leading to your point, you're going to lead to
Right,
a
but
feel-good story.
And it is a feel-good story, and that's why I think I wanted to bring it up. This Simone Biles, right?
Right. Olympic champ, too, right?
Right, but six-time U.S. gymnastics overall champion, and she pulled some triple twisting thing over yesterday or whatever it was to win. No one's ever done this in competition. Now, you and I go back to, we watched U.S. gymnastics, and we go back to Olga Korbut in 72,
We
and then
do.
Tominici in 76,
We
and
most
Mary Lou
certainly
Retton.
do.
I mean, so we've seen all this stuff.
Mary Lou Retton, 84,
Yep.
and on and on. Right.
Dominique Mucciano was the number one, you know. But what Simone Biles and these Allie Reichmans, you know, you got to tip your hat to these kids, what they went through. And they have a right to say about the U.S. gymnastics, you have got to be kidding me.
Oh, absolutely.
This was going on. We told you it was going on, and they all looked the other way. So I'm the guy who's doing time for Michigan State. Good.
Absolutely good.
Get a cell next to Nasser,
No question.
because that guy is a monster. A monster.
Right.
In the Bundy and the Dahmer and the Manson mold.
And we always, I think we always reference HBO, and they did it again. There's a documentary on Larry Nasser. So for our audience, for the guys and gals, and especially if you got young daughters and things like that, and you want to protect them when they're in a sports environment, this is disturbing. This went on for way too long. And this Nasser, I mean, victim after victim after victim. So Simone Biles actually, I think, mentioned that she got caught up in this. You know, it doesn't matter if it's small and insignificant, whatever, but I think she was part of that because of the U.S. gymnastics thing. But I was happy to see this story this weekend, that
Me too.
she did something that nobody physically could do gymnastically wise.
Never been done.
And I think, you know, she's young enough where, you know, hopefully more gold medals and world championships are in her cards.
But just the mental fortitude she must have to have overcome, and we don't know the details of what went on, but we know they were all victims. And, you know, it certainly hurt gymnastics. Parents have got to be reconsidering whether to put their daughters in the trust of
I know
these
what
people.
went on. Larry Nasser was hired as basically the medical doctor for these girls,
And an animal.
and employed by Michigan State.
Yeah.
And had glasses and was, oh, Larry Nasser, nice guy, and doing these exams where the girls would come out and not feel right. And that was 20 years ago.
You know.
And on this went until finally, like you said, Bundy material, Dahmer material,
But what
serial
what
molester.
what a stand-up girl this Simone Biles is.
Sure.
I mean, what
And
a
there's
what a
many
representative.
listen, there's several other girls. I can't remember their names right now, but you should check out the HBO documentary on this. And there are some very brave girls that finally stood up to this. And then they also had their day in court.
He did.
And the judge, too, in this documentary, she was great, too. Because
was.
this Nasser, you could see what a
Creep.
creep, a self-absorbed creep. And the judge really lame-basted him,
Yeah.
and the girls got their opportunity and families to confront him, say what they wanted to say, and for this guy to rot in prison for the rest of his life, you can have more justice.
And the damage is just irreparable because you could see. I mean, Simone Biles pulled off something that no one's ever done in gymnastics. Wins her 6th U.S. overall gymnastics title, and was interviewed afterwards, and she just couldn't contain her thought. I mean, I just think she is awesome,
Thumbs up,
Awesome.
Simone Biles.
right?
That's
So,
good stuff.
yep. So listen, before we sign off, we were kind of joking about our shout out this week, and I said, and again, this is a little off the beaten path, but this is people getting their due. This Jeffrey Epstein hangs himself, or allegedly hangs himself. So kudos to the NYPD. That's our shout out. NYPD Corrections Unit for looking the other way while this guy ties his shoelaces together or whatever it was. We don't know.
We don't know, but I'm telling you, this is far from over. This has so much political and
But what a filthy
crime novel
in the
stuff.
Nasser mold. That's how filthy dirty this guy was. And you know what? Maybe is it justice? I don't know, but he's done, and he deserves to be done.
Oh yeah.
And I hope whoever was tied to this and participated in this filthy stuff that this guy did. Anyway, that's kind of our shout out. So. But listen, thanks for joining us, everybody. It was great to have you on the show. And as Steve mentioned, if you have an email, we'd love to hear from you some feedback from today's show. Sports with Mono and Mono at gmail.com.
Right. I'd like to shout out, we missed our couple sponsors today, Lynch Toyota. We want to thank you for sponsoring the show. And of course, DeFilippi's Bakery up in Monticello, New York.
Of course.
Best blueberry crumb pie in the tri-state area.
Cannolis aren't bad either.
And if you drive through the Catskills, make a point of stopping in and see Carmela out there. So,
Yep.
Thanks everybody for listening. We appreciate all the feedback we get, and we will catch up to you next week.
Very good.
All right.
All right, Steve.
Have a great night.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.